Going SMEs going digital series to go big online. And then in this session, we'll try creating a lot of products based on insights, as well as launching new products online, the do's and don'ts, and also the thought process of value-based of products, especially when it comes to selling online, and then product pricing, creating ratios that actually work. So during this session is brought to you by BotLab and Gaga. A small brief about who BotLab is. So BotLab is a technology firm based on Gong Road. We are part of Safaricom Women in Business and part of Cisco Edge Program 2019. We have a portfolio of technology-based trainings, as well as we provide data science as a service in customer. And our training programs have made so much impact. BotLab has been awarded the ITU Global SME Award, the Social Impact Finalist last year in Hungary. And overall, we were the most outstanding firm in 2019 at and UNESCO, University of Nairobi, Internet Society. We've also worked with ITC. We've also worked with many other clients. We don't want to bore you with the details. And then Go Gaga. So Go Gaga is an experiential, is an online and offline conferencing and event and brand management agency located at 84 Riverside Drive. Their franchise includes Social Media Week Nairobi, Zuri Awards, and Digital Media Awards. They have also worked with companies such as Facebook in East Africa, MIT, the Bandwidth, and cloud services. For both bandwidth and cloud services, they've also worked with Turn Left Media, which also manages LinkedIn, and at Dynamo, which manages Twitter, among many others. They are members of KEPSA. Sure, use the chat option to introduce as well. You can just write your name. You also include what are your expectations for. Also, feel free to use the chat section that you might currently have during this session. We feel free to interact with us. Feel free to interact with us as we proceed. So I can see the panelists are now online. All three of you. I'll start with Juliet. Juliet Kennedy is the founder of Greenspoon, Kenya's first online shop. They've been here for 4 years. That focuses on connecting the customer with the source of their products. She believes that businesses within the capitalistic structure can be a force of good, and putting planet and people first still works for a profitable business. Greenspoon works with Kenyan artisan producers to bring customers with the best quality products available in the region, and offers an excellent online shopping experience with next day delivery anywhere in Kenya. So please make sure you have a look at their website and also the social media. Maybe Juliet, you can also type in the URL so that our users can be able to interact. And then the next one is Tyrus Kamau. Tyrus and I go way, way back. He's the CEO of Zulu Meets today, but Tyrus also owns a cybersecurity firm. So he's an information security professional with over 16 years of experience. And he started the firm 3 years ago, where he runs it full time, and is also the proprietor of an online butchery called Zulu Meets. Prior to starting his own company, Tyrus held various leadership positions in the industry, including Africa Head of IT Security, Airtel Money, at Airtel and Group of IT, Cybersecurity at Cellulant Group. He was a key consultant in the development of the National Cybersecurity Master Plan, working with Booz Allen and Hamilton and the former ICT board. His input saw him work with various intergovernmental bodies in line with the country's Vision 2030. The master plan was launched by the President, Uhuru Kenyatta, in February 2014. He was also a part-time lecturer at Strathmore University, ILAB, Africa, where he lectured a master's in telecommunication for innovation and development between 2012 and 2014. Besides IT security, Tyrus has a passion for the grill, which is what drove him to starting Zulu Meats some 7 months ago. 7 months ago. And at the height of COVID-19, the business ventured into the idea of delivering meat and meat products and has since become one of the most prolific online butcheries in Nairobi. Welcome, Tyrus. Our last panelist is Moses Tizomu. Moses is the lead strategist at Scanad, an advertising professional with 5 years of experience in growing global and local brands in Africa. He works as a strategic planner for Scanad, the largest, oldest, and most awarded integrated creative agency in sub-Saharan Africa. As a strategist, he drives to find the sweet spots between the right data, actionable insights, and creative ideas to tell meaningful and impactful brand stories that deliver effective commercial results. Thank you so much to Moses, Tyrus, and Juliet. Welcome on board. One of the reasons why we wanted to do this is to help all those businesses that are pivoting online, or the ones that are online and looking to scale, can be able to think about some of the key things that they need to think about. So I'll shoot straight, so we'll go directly to the questions. I'll ask Tyrus, as a small business, what kind of research did you have to undertake before introducing some of the new products that you've had in the market?
Thank you so much, Mercy. And hi, everyone. Tyrus here. Quite frankly, I don't think I did any research. Mine was mostly based on a hunch, more of experimental, and born out of the love for the grill. But one thing I can say is that by the time I was acquiring business, because I acquired it from a couple of guys who were disposing of it, I realized that I could do well in the meat business. I just didn't know just how much potential it held up until COVID came along. So one of our franchise products has been Motura, the African sausage. And I remember when we started off, we'd sell about 10 with my guys at the shop, and we'd almost go and have a party for having sold 10 Moturas. After COVID, 10 Moturas are for one client. And what I realized was that people love this delicacy, and they just couldn't know where to find it, whether it's safe to have and it's delivered right at their doorstep. But then the other thing that informed me was that a standard piece of Motura costs 150 shillings, and it costs about 300 shillings to deliver it to wherever you are within the Nairobi metropolitan. And I figured out, so it doesn't make sense for you to order something that is worth 150 shillings. Why don't we introduce other cuts of meat? So that's when we introduced our T-bone, our filet, chicken, and everything. And that, again, comes as a package, premium packaged, well-designed and hygienic. Idea that people enjoy, having Motura, and they enjoy having it in the cover of darkness, which is interesting because most of my customers for the Motura are women, from my statistics. And that again, told me that the demand for it would definitely need to look at the pricing points, which is what I did. And haven't increased the price of that product since we launched it, and I don't intend to, because the volumes are working for me. And also, have to introduce, what we call companion products that accompany our franchise product is something that, I'm now, applying science and data analysis and a bit of insights from the market to introduce better products into the market.
Okay, that's really, really good. Juliet, would you like to add anything?
Thanks, Mercy. We have a slightly different business model. So the research that goes into our products before we list them is more around planet and people. So even though, of course, we are, very sensitive about price to be highly competitive, we have positioned ourselves as a business that puts our pillars of environmental consciousness, social consciousness, and quality as important as the price of the product as well. So we do quite a lot of research before we introduce a new product into the market. But like Tyrus said, I think, and for a lot of entrepreneurs, it's the same thing. You kind of have a hunch about what's going to work. And now 4 years in with Greenspoon customers, I really understand my customer extremely well. And I don't know whether Tyrus has found this, maybe Moses as well, that when you operate an online business, it's a very different ecosystem. So in some ways, customers can feel super connected to your brand and feel very, very much like they can share with you all their feedback. And then you get to know your customer even better, I think, than if you were running a shop floor with a lot of different people, customer service people running around and getting feedback and not managing to feed it back to central management, for instance, or the decision makers. So that's been my experience.
Oh, that's good. I also think when people call you, whether they have something, that also is part of research. So it's informal research, not structured research, but it helps you gauge what are those things that people are asking for so you can be able to add them in. Moses, you are the research guru. You guys did some research during COVID. It was about analyzing consumer behavior. So maybe you can give us some of the tips and what are those things, according to what you gathered from the report, what are those things that a small business can be able to integrate as they look into exploring adding a new product to what they currently sell online?
Thank you, Mercy. I think I think research is a heavy word, definitely for anyone starting a small business. And I mean, the word research already is a jargon, but I think in terms of how you sort of understand what the market needs is almost like you start from a very you almost go with a qualitative approach where it's more about understanding what the need is. I think one of the most common problems that I see small businesses trying to do or conduct research online is asking people what product they want. Yeah? And I think that's already the wrong approach. I don't think customers already know what products they want, but have a need. What you're trying to identify is the need. What you're trying to identify is a problem that they're currently facing, a tension that they're currently facing, or a gripe. Yeah, and I think we, from another agency I used to work at, we used to have a very interesting tool called Exploring, and it was really just an informal research approach. And what we'd have to do is almost go out every single time before you even understand the brief that you receive. You go out and just sit down with normal people, understand what their lives is about, and from there you start to pick nuggets or pick very interesting insights in terms of what they're actually what problem that they're currently facing and how your product can come in. I think from what's the report that we posted or we published based on COVID was based on the fact that most people are now facing a lot of financial uncertainty, right? And with that, what's coming in is that now they're starting to experiment with new products that are almost cheaper or are lower from what they were used to before, right? And I think a lot of that opportunity is coming from online, right? And I think as a small business, now is the time to almost start exploring what are people starting to face, or what products are they moving away from, because now, I guess, because of the financial uncertainty that everyone is facing now. And now it gives you an opportunity to start looking at those, and I mean, now you can actually start a business based on that.
Okay. That's very, very informative. So going back to you, Juliet, how do you plan for a new product launch? What is the process like? Are there any do's and don'ts that you've learned along the way as you've built Greenspoon for the last 4 years? And what also have you done about the slow moving goods? What has been your strategy for the slow moving goods?
In terms of a new product launch, I think anyone who's been following Greenspoon will know that we have definitely increased the number of products that we offer during the COVID period. For me, the product launch is about, sometimes it's about asking the audience in advance, is this something you're looking for? And teeing them up for something that you're going to launch. I think it's also like a last that you're not getting massively negative response. But I think it's also really worth bearing in mind that what people do and what people say can sometimes be a little bit different. So they can show huge enthusiasm for something, but then when you actually launch it, it can be a little bit of a slower uptake. In terms of product launches, we're always prepared for quite a slow uptake unless there's been this huge gap in the market and we have this great feeling that, you know, it's definitely going to fly. And then we see it go off the shelves, or as it were, virtually really, really quickly, and we have to react. You know, it's a very difficult process, that being able to predict how much you're going to sell when a new product comes on board. So that's where you just have to be super agile, and that's where I feel like small businesses actually have a bit of an edge, because we are smaller, we can be a little bit more dynamic, we can make decisions quicker than, say, some of the bigger players out there. In terms of sorry, excuse me. In terms of the do's and don'ts, I think involving as many of the stakeholders as possible is really key to a successful product launch, and having a strategy around it is really important as well. So having thought out, like, which channels are you going to make use of? What's the main reason you think people should be buying this product, and what do you think will chime best with your customers? Sometimes it's a case of having an introductory launch price to get people on board, to get as many people trying this new product as possible. And then after a period of time, you can put the price to what, you know, normalize the price. I don't think there are rigid do's and don'ts. Like, I think you have to feel your way as a business, as well as understanding how you're going to get a product out there. So it's not, I don't see it as being cut and dry. You can't just say, like, this is the only way you can launch a product out there, and particularly in the online space, it can be very, like, there are so many different ways you can do things. And I think the messaging becomes super, super important around new product launch. I can't remember what the last part of your question was, Mercy. I'm just going to have a look. And things that I've learned along the way. Is that right?
Yes.
I think one of the things I've learned along the way is that, for instance, with us, like, we're not in a for our products, so we have to really prioritize which ones we're going to take a lot of quantity of, and then there are some others that deliver just in time. So that strategic logistical factor has been important for us, particularly when you launch a product. So there have been times when we've launched a product and we've underestimated how quickly it will sell, and then we're out of stock, and then it's back again. And it's something that I've tried to learn to get better at, because I know that it can be very frustrating for the customer. On the other hand, it can create a little bit of a tension of scarcity, which can then increase demand. So it's a double-edged sword, if you like. So we've had to be quite strategic about the space that we will dedicate to new products, and trying really hard to kind of model and forecast how much of that product we're going to be able to shift, and how quickly the supplier can bring us more product. So I can't say, like, there's a list of things, but it's definitely, it can be quite a complex process.
Okay. What about your slow moving goods? What strategies do you use to promote slow moving goods?
So with the slow moving goods, sometimes we'll bundle them up with the faster moving goods. Other times we just try to highlight them on the site. But I think just understanding that products do have a life cycle, And sometimes, you know, with our customer base, there just may be a period of time where a product is very exciting and there's a high demand for it. And then as we analyze, you know, we've seen that product sort of go through its life cycle and become a very slow moving product. And sometimes that means that we may delist it, or we'll put it into a category where the delivery is just in time, so that we're no longer taking up valuable space in our warehousing for that very slow moving product. But I do think that savvy positioning of slow moving products can change the way that they're bought by customers. Just checking which categories you've put them into, if you've got different categories on your online space, and you know, always feeling like your website is a dynamic space that needs to be changing all the time. So you know, like if you had a physical shop and things weren't moving, you might go and place them in the shop window. So how is a way that you can do that on your website? You know, there are different ways of positioning the products and different ways of highlighting them as well. For us, it can also be something simple like putting them into a recipe or doing an IG live about them. And suddenly, you know, we find that we're getting traction on that product again. So those are various strategies that we've used, and also our email marketing.
Product launch. What then that means that you might keyword might sell it online.
You know, when this audience, but then audiences are gonna
What about you, Tyrus? What do you think?
So, maybe if you could repeat the question, I think it's quite a hard
So
question.
how do you plan for a new product launch? The process, the do's and don'ts that you learned from experience along the way, and also what has been your strategy for slow moving goods?
Thanks, Marcy. So to begin with, I think even before the products, the one thing that I keep telling my team is that we may be a new, maybe a business that is doing things differently, but we're definitely not the first to do this. It's not like, and since we are mostly online, it's not like customers were seated at home refreshing their social media pages waiting for Zulu meets, then they can start purchasing the meat. They were still purchasing the meat. It's only that we decided to tweak that model and offer, products that are convenient for the customers, and especially post-COVID. And at the same time, our products are fairly straightforward. They're cuts of meat. And like I said, with our flagship Motora, and now we diversified into chicken and everything. And for me, it's been mostly experimental, as I mentioned. And I always do a litmus test with the market, put out a product out there, see the reception. And I'm thankful because I think my customer base is fairly young, and they're quite well versed with online purchases, because you can think of people from an older generation who are buying meat they can't see, and they can't point to exactly where they want the cut to come from. So it's a fairly new paradigm shift for people. But then our customers trusted us, and they trust that if I order for steak, this is what I'll get. If I order for filet, this is exactly what it is that I get. And so the onus is on me as a business to ensure that the buyer of my promise, who is the customer, has to have a fulfillment of the order and a completion of the order at the same time. So my products were pretty straightforward, like I mentioned. We deal with meat, both beef, lamb, mutton, liver, chicken, and everything. It's a pretty fairly typical butchery that you'd find. But the most important thing that I try and keep in mind is the lifetime value of my customer, and to see the reception. And like Juliet rightfully put it, you get instant feedback. Once you put yourself out there, you get instant feedback. At times, maybe the order could go wrong for various reasons. And the customers are very unforgiving. And my measure of how well we're doing is how much we can do to salvage that customer and win back their confidence. Because you only have one chance to make a lasting first impression. So if they give you a second chance, then you better have those things fixed along the way. In terms of slow-moving products, I don't think I've had slow-moving products. I may have products that are probably not doing as well as I thought they would. So for instance, we have these meat packs. So we have meat packs graded in different pricing points. So maybe 1,000, 1,500, 3,000, 10,000. And we also have party packs that have an accompaniment of alcohol to it. So there's a meat pack that I thought would be best for families, but that has not been moving at all. So what we do is that we just try it once because it's on demand. We don't have the meat cut already and stored, so we simply just prepare it once the customer asks for it. And all I do is just retire these products that are not moving. Not too much ceremony. I don't think too much about it. I look at the bottom line. I look at how much am I spending, on my social media and everything. And I simply just do quick math and decide that, this product is not for us. We could try it maybe during a festival or when, we have a festive period, which again is going to be very difficult with COVID. So there's some products that are only tied to when people are meeting in large groups, for instance, the party pack. At the same time, the one thing I've learned is that even as the customer is giving you instant feedback, it's a learning point for you to understand whether your business model actually makes sense. So for instance, like I mentioned, we do meat deliveries, but I don't owe any rider. So what I did is that I took a chance to look at the riders who are available and said, guys, look, things are thick. I'm guaranteeing you a specific amount of money every day if you fulfill these orders. So the more orders you make, the more money you make, right? But then the delivery fee is paid directly to me. So if there's any customer complaint, as far as the delivery is concerned, then I'll not pay you that amount. And you have a very good agreement with that. So that again saves me a lot of time and effort to think about logistics, because I think that's an area I really don't want to deal with. And also in retail, you understand that you can get caught up in the details and lose sight of the bigger picture. So for me, that has been one of the most profound learning lessons that I feel I can cascade to anyone else who wants to get into this space. And having seen how well online consumerism has really grown in this country, and especially within the last 4 to 5 months, I think there's quite an opportunity for that.
Okay. I saw a very interesting question here. I think it will give a glimpse to the audience, to you both, you and Juliet. Maybe you can start off, Tyrus. Maybe you can include context by sharing what size of customer bases you actually serve. And the Motura guy, who's Tyrus, mentioned 15 customers before COVID. What about now? So maybe you can give some of the places statistics of your business, some of the quantities that you actually ship out every day, some of the locations that you currently serve, and some of the products.
Okay, thanks, Mercy. So onto the first question, my demography. So like I said, our age group is between early 20s all the way to late 40s, I'd say. So when we started, we never had any delivery, so we just had walk-ins. And back then, I remember we would really not make as much motura, we would not sell as much meat as we want to. But with the deliveries, I think we tripled the amount of stock we purchase on a given day. On a given day, because we operate from Tuesdays to Sundays, so Monday we take a day off for my guys to rest. We do an average of about between 30 to 45 orders that's on delivery. And those are purely online. And by online, I mean social media through Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And then we also have a phone number where people can call on, and then combined with a few walk-ins. At the same time, I'd say that our flagship product, which is a motura, we used to sell 10. now we sell about 120 in a day, and it's always in high demand. And at times it runs off. It can run out by 2 p.m. or by 4 p.m. and customers just have to wait for the following day, because for me, I wouldn't compromise on quality just to feed the growing demand. But as Juliet said, I mean, scarcity is also a good thing in a business as ours. Then the other question I see here is about trust issues buying online. So like I said, for me, being in the meat business, it's one thing that has come out very clearly, that if you do a good job, customers will trust you with whatever it is that you're selling. So long as you deliver on point, on your delivery promise, and it's quality and it's hygienic and they love it, they love the packaging, the presentation, the customer service, they will buy into it, because people are buying meat they haven't seen. They entrust us to send them 1 kg of meat, and that's what they get. They entrust us to send them a full capon chicken, and that's exactly what they get. So I think it's really built on trust. And again, trust is, it's grown and it's shared, and it has to be based on values that, again, the person who's running the business has to strongly believe in.
Okay. Also, just to highlight that Zulu Meat sells a lot on Twitter. It was actually interesting that it started on Twitter, then I think that's when they moved on to other platforms. And usually most business people never think about Twitter as a starting point to sell. So they're very, very popular. If you search Zulu Meat on Twitter, I can guarantee you will get lots and lots of pictures and impressions, which also grows the trust of your customers, because now other people are saying, not only is Tyrus talking about the meat, but also the clients themselves are saying how good the meat was, how the packaging was on point. Good things sells. Good things sell themselves. Yeah. Okay. And Juliet, would you like to add something about customer statistics about your farm?
Sure. So we actually have always delivered all over Kenya, and we use a courier service overnight for anywhere outside Nairobi. And what we've seen since COVID, we really saw in March, April, a tripling of business, and May as well, sort of held that. And then, June is sort of between double and triple what it was before. So we've seen a huge take up of online, of our services basically. And I think obviously, like, first of all was the fear of going out and not quite knowing how to handle yourself, I think, in this COVID situation. I think people have got a little bit more used to it, but I think once you show people how safe it is to order online and how convenient it is to have it delivered to your house, it's quite hard to go back from that. And I think, Tyrus, like you were saying, I don't know if I was interviewed by Caroline Mutoko last year, and she just said to me straight up, she was like, how dare you think you can sell me meat online when I can't even see what I'm buying? And it was a little bit of a curveball, but it was a valid question, and especially for a lot of Kenyans who want to touch and see everything before they buy it. So it's a massive leap of faith, and I'm so happy to hear Tyrus's story and how many people have taken it up, because I think once you've done it the first time as a customer, then you realize, like, I trust this brand, I trust these people, and I 100% have bought into the quality of this product. I'm not going back again. So it's a really interesting space, and definitely over this COVID period has been great for us as a business, even though, personally and on many other levels, it's been a massive challenge. I think, that the older generation may be a little bit less tech savvy, but I don't think that any of this is impossible for them to catch up on. In answer to Diane's question there, I think that this last 3 months will have seen grandparents who've never WhatsApp videoed their grandchildren starting to do it, all kinds of different adaptations online happening. And I think that will just spin off into all kinds of directions, including e-commerce and doing their shopping online. So I think that the future looks really bright, and certainly for me and Tyrus both selling meat online, there were definitely challenges there, but that's changing.
Great to hear that, Juliet. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about the product life cycle. I saw during this COVID period, you are working with some of the exporters of food And what practices did you think of or employ as you were trying to shift the customer to a new product?
So it's really interesting with this COVID period, because we have an export quality vegetable box, which is a subscription product. So you have to subscribe for a month and we deliver to you every week. And this was something we'd been working on for like 2 years. And what happened with COVID was that I just felt really, I felt a massive responsibility to my customers, and I was getting feedback from them saying, you're such a lifeline, I'm so glad you exist, I don't want to leave the house. And I was thinking, like, we have to speed up this process with the vegetable box. So we did. And one of the reasons it had taken quite a long time was that I was really insistent that there would be no plastic packaging in this box, and that all of the vegetables and fruits would be export quality, so that you can be assured that you're eating fruit and veg that adheres to EU regulations and standards. Not to say that we don't have good enough standards here in Kenya, but I think that perhaps there's room for a little bit more regulation in that part. And I know that for my demographic of customers, it's really, really important to have that safety issue covered. So in the case of the export quality vegetables, it was important for me to be able to serve my customers, but it became apparent that it was important for the exporter to also make sure that they had some other avenues. So that's been really interesting. And I think as a country, it's great. And I've seen in the papers a lot about, we need to put pressure on our government to make it easier for growers of vegetables to sell locally on the local market rather than just to only export, and so on and so forth. So that's been important. The other thing I looked at and thought about really carefully at the beginning is that since we're all in lockdown, yes, we have to have our day-to-day meals, but what else do we want? Okay, lots of people love to go out for a meal and really enjoy that ambience of a restaurant and enjoy somebody else preparing them some food. And that's where the idea for the eat-in section came, where we have frozen meals. So you can just buy the frozen meal and then you can defrost it as and when you want to eat it. So it's a very different space to meals being delivered hot and ready to eat. It's much more of I was also aware that, a lot of my customers are families, and mums were suddenly having to try and juggle homeschooling and work and everything else, all the stress of COVID. And I realized that you don't necessarily want to cook at the end of the day if you've had a really strenuous day trying to juggle all these different elements of life. And some days you just want to be able to pull out a meal, put it in the oven and eat half an hour later without all the faff of preparation. So that was a really fun thing to develop for the site and for our customers, and it's been hugely successful product range that we've been able to offer. The other thing we looked at is, again, like Moses was saying earlier, that people are starting to feel a bit of a crunch in terms of their financial situation. So that was where we came up with these bulk meat packages, which are really, really good value, and people can buy 5 kilos at a time and then split them up with friends and family, or if they've got a big freezer, keep them for when they need that meat. So we were very responsive to the situation, and I think that I think we've been able to serve our customers really well as a result. During this period of COVID, I wouldn't say that there's anything that has ended its product life cycle. I would say that if anything, we've just been adding and adding, and there will be a period where we'll need to sit back and consolidate and rethink and do a bit more analysis. But I think for the last 4 months, a lot of us have been highly reactive.
Okay. Back to you, Tyrus. What do you think about the process of bundling products and optimizing customer sales and behavior? You have a meat pack that starts from 1,000 bob, as you mentioned, to around 10,000. So what went into the process of bundling these products together?
Oh, thanks, Marcy. So after we started, we were simply just selling meat as is. So we'd get different cuts. You can get lamb chops, you can get beef short ribs and everything separately. But then I figured out it would be very interesting to especially appeal to online food bloggers and chefs and people who do recipes, to send them a meat pack, right? And that ranges from red and purely red meat to purely white, and then you can do a mix of both. Of course, packed separately to avoid cross-contamination. And that appealed a lot, especially to the working class, I realized. Because where my butchery is situated, I'm surrounded by a lot of single young men and women, the working class, upwardly mobile. They don't want the hassle of always leaving the house to go and buy meat. They come home late, okay, when they used to go to work, that is. And that largely informed me about bundling these meat packs, and it made a lot of financial sense. The pricing points as well were very attractive because these are people who have the spending power. And I remember, there was a debate actually on Twitter about our meat seemingly being slightly more expensive than what you get at your local butchery. And it's obvious that, you're paying for the convenience and also the premium packaging that we're delivering to you. And also the quality that saves you the convenience of having to traverse town and to queue and to also haggle with the butcher guy who probably is serving 50 guys who are ahead of you and doesn't have the time of day to be patient with your specific needs as far as the meat is concerned. So we tried to eliminate that, just create a very good user experience. And that for me was straightforward. It didn't take much thought to launch these products. And at the same time, we also launched a lunch pack, which we do every Thursday and Friday, which included 2 drinks of your choice. And this one was also very attractive now that people started going back to work. And if you think of a Thursday or a Friday where you're spending 1,000 shillings to get half a kilo of mbuzi, some hotura, and maybe 2 ciders, that is a complete meal for you. And you might not even have dinner by the time you get home. And it's a good way to end the week. And it has that, it has that feel good. Now that we can't congregate, why don't I just order this entire pack to myself and it gets home and I enjoy it by myself or with my family? And those 2 products, well, I can say are the 2 things that I sat down and thought through, looked at the price points, looked at the demand, and I looked at the longevity of the product, and I can confidently say those have been our signature products across the week. So the other product that I introduced today was selling marinated meat. So we've been working on an in-house dry rub. So we marinate the meat for you and send it to you. All you can do is either grill it in the oven or you can slap it on the grill. And that as well has attracted a lot of attention. And like I said, Zulu Meats it serves a certain audience, which is why we are online. It's always a curious crowd. They're willing to experiment. They love good things, and we bring them good things, right? So that for me has really shaped the agenda of my strategy. And I can see in the horizon that there are quite a number of things that I'm going to be doing with the business, including franchising the same, which I've received a few requests from different people in town. Since we are only serving in Nairobi, that for me is a strategy to expand out of the city. So I think that has greatly been influenced by the feedback that I've gotten, both directly and indirectly from the customers.
Okay. And then Juliet, you have a subscription box and you have an export box. What was the process of you coming up with that bundle, and how do you determine what products go into the subscription box, and how do you make sure that you calculate your budgets in such a way that you will hit when you sell this amount of subscription boxes this week, you have broken even?
So the subscription box is the export quality veg box for the time being. We will look at other subscription options as well in time. We actually have customers asking for it already, so we're working on it. It's a little bit more of a complicated matrix when you're trying to work out your profit margin on a subscription box, because I felt that if somebody's going to subscribe, you need to roll in the cost of delivery. And in a way, with the subscription box, it's a really great thing for any business to have it, because you know that you're going to have that repeat customer base. For us, it was also a question of, like, if a customer's going to be getting vegetables once a week, then the likelihood of them adding a few other things, maybe from the dairy section, the meat or the wine, eaten, such and such, will kind of make up for any any impact that the delivery and logistics costs are having on it. But we did some very careful modeling around it, so we're not going to lose money, but it's just a question of, it's quite a lean margin around that subscription box. But we're the only people really offering it 100% plastic free, and of that particular quality. So that's also, in a sense, when we talk about a product launch, that it's a way of letting your company stand out as being different and unique, offering a unique proposition. So I think, when it comes to that subscription model, I would caution some wariness in terms of really going into some serious detail around the margin analysis and the costs associated.
Okay. So we go into sales a little bit, and what kind of service level agreements do you have with your suppliers, if there are any, and is there an onboarding checklist for you? And also any tips for maintaining a dual relationship between your clients and also your suppliers in terms of feedback, in terms of quality, in terms of product?
Okay, so in terms of a service level agreement and the onboarding process, we do have a pretty extensive onboarding process in terms of just vetting and ensuring that our suppliers will fit the profile of the business. So it's quite a long process, and it includes a lot of detailed information about the business and what the environmental impacts that they're having as a business, and social impacts, and anything that they're giving back that's positive. Assuming that they fit the criteria that we set out for all of our suppliers, we then have a process of vetting the products themselves to ensure that they're at the right quality of what our customers will expect and what we stand for. So that will often involve, we have a tasting table committee, which is a very enviable job, and they will be sent samples, and they're asked for a lot of feedback from those samples, and then we take that really seriously. At the beginning, it was really me and my small team, and then I realized that we can't be representative of all of our customers, and it would be great to get them involved. So that's how we do some of the vetting around the quality of the products themselves. And then once all of those sort of processes have been, the supplier's gone through those processes, then we're able to list the products and launch them. So, this is the thing about growing a business, it used to maybe take a day or two, and it was me saying to the supplier, I really need you to be on my website, and we're growing a business and so on. Now we've got to the size where I'm fielding inquiries, and the process, there's a lot more going on, so it's a little bit slower than it used to be, but what that means is that we can really carry out our due diligence. And I also try to go and see a lot of our suppliers at least once a year, and just check on how they're doing and get feedback on how we're working with them, check on that relationship. Phone calls are really important for that as well, but just seeing people face to face, I know COVID's changed that, but there's nothing quite like it, just sitting down over a table and talking things through and being really honest and open about how business is going. So yeah, I think that particularly during this last 4 months, relationships have become really, really important. I think we've all realized that business is human, and we have to connect with our suppliers on a very human level, and understand that they may be facing some serious challenges, and how can we support them along the way as well. So yeah, we do a lot of relationship building on that front.
Okay. I've also seen that you guys do Instagram lives with some of your suppliers, so that at least you can have audiences, each other's audience. So you'll probably do a recipe using their products, and in turn they can buy from you, which also strengthens the relationship together with your suppliers.
Exactly. And I think that, you know, that's one thing that's been absolutely amazing, is just being pushed into doing a little bit more of these live IGs, because it just means that a customer base can really get to know the human being or human beings behind the business that they're supporting through us. So it's super powerful. It's an amazing way to connect.
Okay. Tyrus, how do you maintain your relationship with your suppliers? How do you onboard your different suppliers? And how do you also maintain the dual relationship between you and the suppliers and the clients that you serve, together with in terms of feedback, in terms of product, that kind of thing?
Quite honestly, I don't have a framework. I hope to grow and be at Juliet's level, where I have a testing table. We are a really, really small outfit, but 7 months has really taught us a lot. Like I mentioned, there are plans that I have in the horizon to standardize everything. So every supplier that I've had, I've handpicked them based on referrals. I think my standard SLA is turnaround time for supply, you know, because I'm a sucker for just having things done on good time so that it doesn't cascade all the way to my customers. Then I get the stock myself. So I'm hoping at some point I'll partner with specific herders and rearers for livestock that I can, you know, plug my business into. So at the moment, I don't have a very comprehensive SLA with any suppliers, to be honest. However, as far as feedback is concerned, I get feedback directly from our socials and also through our customer service line. I'm free to engage the clients, but then seeing that I'm also running a different company, I got a manager to handle most of the customer complaints and issues. If there are any escalations, then I'm always available to listen to them and to address them. But so far so good. The escalations have greatly reduced. I barely receive any calls. And initially, customers would call me directly to order for one of our products, and I had to divorce myself very quickly from that, because then again, I'd get really sucked into it and, you know, forget that I have other things that I'm running. So I can confidently say that now Zulu Meats is entirely running itself. I haven't been to the shop in 2 weeks, and it's been doing well. I've been receiving positive feedback from my team and also from customers, and I see the feedback myself. Every time I log onto Twitter, I see that. I get onto Instagram as well. I look at the messages and I see what the customers are saying. I'm quite confident that we've done a good job in maintaining that customer feedback loop. And the other thing that we're also doing is that, like I mentioned, I think we leapfrogged our growth within the last 3 to 4 months that we never had the chance to, or rather I never had a chance to think through about certain structures that I need to put in place. So those structures are slowly taking shape right now. And a good blueprint would be to inherit what Juliet has mentioned, because then again, it also just keeps things in line. You know, it saves you a lot of headaches, it saves you a lot of compliance issues, but some of the basics that we've covered, especially with health and also with packaging, and also in sourcing quality stuff, especially the meats, knowing that we're getting grade A beef, we're getting grade A lamb and mutton and chicken as well. That is something that I'm really happy that we figured out very quickly, because that's the backbone of our products. Like, I mean, people buying meat they can't see, and you send it to them and they open it up, they cook it, and they say, it's really good, I really loved it. That for me has been one of the biggest wins, and it just validates my assumption that you can set up an online business and be honest about it, and people will simply just fall into place, and they'll keep coming back. Of course, for me, the lifetime value of the customer is what really counts.
Okay. Pricing is always hard for most businesses. From your journey, what are those items or metrics that one should think of as they price to sell online? We always hear you can't sell luxury online. You always hear you have to think about cost when the audience is cost sensitive. How do you make sure that you incorporate a good pricing in a place where you are having an online profitable business, but also something that is reachable to the audience that you are trying to sell to?
I think what I realized is, and also being an online customer, because I purchase a lot online, I may, at some point, I'll look at the pricing and I'll be like, this doesn't make sense. You know, maybe if I walk to the shop, I'd get a good deal. But then on the other hand, striking the balance between pricing it appropriately and not exorbitantly versus not being too cheap that you start casting doubt is one of the most delicate balances that I've had to do. But at the same time, I can justify my product because I'm delivering convenience, I'm delivering quality, and you know, the brand itself has taken a life of its own. So it's definitely something that you can believe in. And at the same time, I'm very conscious of my costs because the price point of what it is that I'm purchasing as my stock has to generate enough income for me to sustain my team and at the same time sustain the business to a point where, you know, where we break even and there are profit margins left on top. So for that, I was very deliberate when I was creating the pricings on our menu and for all our products. So I have a direct hand at that. And I'll crunch the numbers and I'll look at, would I pay for this? And I'll look at the demographic that we've been selling at. I'll look at the historical data. What does this tell us? Has anyone ever complained about our pricing points? And quite frankly, no one has so far. I haven't had anyone complain about any of the products that you're selling, which tells me that we got it right. Yeah. Now, there's a very high chance that, you know, moving on within the next 6 months, we don't know how things will be. There's a lot of uncertainty. I could change my pricing points. By how much is the conundrum that I'm dealing with? It's what I'm trying to figure out by what percentage. Because at the same time, I like to keep my team and I like to keep them happy. I'd like to reward them because they've done an excellent job. But then again, I can't reward them while I'm still at the same pricing points. You get my point? So I'm really working around that and looking at the data, because the one thing I realized we do as business people is that we ignore the data, and the data is telling us a story. You know, those numbers, the number of deliveries you've done, vis-a-vis the number of complaints you've had, all aggregated to they're telling you a story. And for me, that's where I'm now focused on. I want to be that business that is heavily data-driven by the time I'm clocking 1 year, because I want to set a very good foundation for this franchise.
Okay. So we've had operational cost. We've had operational cost is the cost of buying goods, is also the cost of maintaining your team, and also a profit margin, correct?
Yes, that's very true.
Juliet, what about you? How do you do the pricing of your products, and how, if someone was starting out their business, what are those things you would want them to think about when they're pricing for their product?
I 100% agree with Tyrus that it is one of the most delicate things you can do. And also, it's a very different game to having a physical store. You are 100% public. And I mean, I think it's important to approach pricing with a very dynamic viewpoint, as dynamic as you can, not to the point where you're unpredictable as a business, but to the point where as the person who's crunching the numbers, you're always open to understanding what's working and what isn't. We are quite a data-driven business. We get a lot of data on a daily basis: new customers, basket, average basket size, which categories are performing, which categories have fallen down in performance, etc., etc. And we use that to inform ourselves of how we're going to drive the business forward. And I think that's where anybody who's setting up a business online, think about the data that you're collecting and understand how powerful it can be for you as a business and how you're going to read that data. Because it's all very well and good to collect data, but if it's in Excel sheets that are tricky to read, you probably won't look at them. So the easier you make it for yourself. And for me, it's all about like pie charts and colorful things. And then I look at it and it makes sense to me, and I'm able to kind of, it makes sense to me very quickly. And then I'm able to kind of make decisions around that. I think, you know, it's important to touch on the point that there should usually be with a supplier a wholesale price and a recommended retail price. Having said that, we're in Kenya and e-commerce has never been as big as it is today, and it hasn't grown as quickly as it has over the last 4 months. So we would quite often come across suppliers who didn't have that differentiation in their product pricing, and then it was a case of working with them to work out how to establish that margin. So to be able to sell at a volume, you've got a wholesale price, and then when you're selling pole out of the back door, you're using your retail price, but you're protecting your retailers. And I think that understanding is really important, because if you go and list your product with a retailer and then the next minute you're undercutting them, that's not a good basis for a good relationship and for supportive, support from your retailers. So I think in terms of pricing, like, it is a very, very delicate process, and sometimes it takes time for things to shake down, for you to really understand what are your logistics really costing you, unless you've got really simple unit costs. We do it very differently to Tyrus. We have our own vehicles, our own drivers, and they do different circuits, different zones in Nairobi. And part of that is because of this level of service that we're offering and the customer demographic that we're dealing with, and the sensitivity of a lot of the products. Obviously we've got the meat, but we've also got wine, trays of eggs, all sorts of different things that need to be handled super carefully. So, that is a variable cost that you really have to take into account, and is going to have an impact on your profit margin. And sometimes it just takes a few months of operations to learn how to analyze that and to then react to it.
Okay. Moses, we have a question for you. Ian has asked, as we work with SMEs, there's demand for data-based reviews from business decision makers. Ian's question is, what data points should they be tracking as an SME to inform their online strategy, given that a lot of these businesses didn't have a strategy when they registered online?
Please come again on the question.
So Ian has posted a question on the chat. He asks, as we work with SMEs, there is demand for data-based review from business decision makers. His question is, what data points should you be tracking as an SME to inform their online strategy, given that these businesses didn't have a strategy when they registered online?
Wow, okay. I'm trying to understand from what sort of perspective that question is coming from. Are you trying to sort of monitor what consumers are doing online? Are you trying to monitor their feedback? I don't know how to answer that.
Okay. I also think maybe it's about what data points should they be tracking? What data points should an SME be tracking to be able to inform an online strategy, whether they should go digital or not, and how do they track their successful metrics, if I have understood what Ian has asked?
Yeah, okay. I mean, I think as a small business, you go where your customers are. I think if you think of, I guess in Tyrus's case, a lot of his customers, he found that were on social media. And so he's gone straight to social media for that, and Twitter specifically for that. And I think it's a simple answer as you go where your customers are. I think there's also another aspect of sort of understanding what your customers need and whether they have the capability of doing things online. I think if you're in Nairobi, then you definitely understand that. I think over 60% of the adult population here have smartphones, so they can definitely. So you can definitely access them through online channels, right? But if you're in a place, or if your customers do not have that sort of power or that sort of exposure coming online, then it becomes a very difficult thing to do.
Okay.
Can I also add to that, Mercy, that it was a really important learning for us at the beginning of our business that we went to a few farmers markets, and we already had too many products to go to a farmer's market, but we went to try and get the exposure. And what I learned from that, which was a really key learning, is that people then expected to see us at every farmer's market. And I was determined to be building an online store. So if you're really keen to build an online store, stay online, start online, and find your customers online where you want them to transact with you. If you're going to do a hybrid, that's cool. But I think being sure of your strategy then can define how you act as a business. And for us, in terms of what data points you can track in order to inform your strategy, I think looking at geodata is quite important. I think looking at the time when people place orders is important. I think looking at basket size is important. And if you can get demographic information, that's great, but it's not always that forthcoming online.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I can also touch on the pricing question.
Okay.
And from a consumer perspective, right? I think Juliet and Tyrus did a very good job from the business side. I think looking at it from the consumer's perspective is, this is where the importance of having a brand comes in, right? And I think when you start as a small business, of course, you're trying, I guess, because you have very limited awareness, and what you're trying to do is essentially get people to try out your product. And so you go at a very lower price, right? But I think if you invest your resources in developing a brand, and people can then start to trust you. And I think if you're like Greenspoon, if you're like Zulu Meats, and then people can then start to trust the service level or the experience they're getting on it. And then you find out that you can actually start to upscale your price, right? And then now you can cost them 50 shillings more because they're assured that they're going to get their product on time, they're going to get a good quality product while at it, right? And this is where I think if you think about Coke, for instance, and I know Coke is always a bad example because it's been in existence for 100 years, but the reason why they can introduce a new product and people will buy it immediately and not even question the price is because they've invested in the brand, right? And I think as a small business, people almost always overlook that and sort of look at the sales and the push on the sales aspects of it. I think if you exist in an online platform, and what that means is that there are a lot of competitors who are on board as well, you need to almost stand out. And I think the importance of a brand or creating or investing in your small business brand is quite important in pricing.
I also think, like, to add to that as well, Moses, that like for sustainability of your own business, if you don't invest in brand building, you probably will be overtaken by competitors at some point.
Oh, that's good.
Very true, actually. I could just chime into that. I have a very classic example. So when I started off, someone came and set up shop right next to me and started doing exactly what it is that I do. And they didn't just stop it at that. They went ahead and stole my menu, cropped the logo, and opened a Facebook page for their butchery and claimed they're doing online deliveries as well. And as of yesterday, I gathered that they're looking to, close shop. So I totally agree with what Moses has said. It's all about the brand. You simply can't copy paste, someone else's brand strategy, the brand lifeline, and everything else that comes with the brand, and hope that it's going to work. You really need to invest in it, and the only way to get surety that you're doing a good job is through your customers. If they trust your price points, they trust your products, your delivery, your fulfillment, then no one else can come close. And the competition that does, it's good competition, because then again, you're competing at offerings and also at, acquiring, trying to eat into each other's lunch, the customer base as well.
Interesting. So maybe Tyrus, you can start. You can tell us what has helped your business grow online. What are those things that you've tested and have proved to be successful? Are there any failures you've encountered along your journey the last couple of months? And what lessons have you gathered from the experience?
So even before I started Zulu Meats, I always used to post about grilling. So I'd have a great weekend, fire up the grill, take it on a test drive, I'd post whatever it is that I'm grilling, and I'd get the feedback, and I'd see people are really keen on this. Asking for invites, hey, how come I didn't get the invite? Send it my way, and that told me that, well, I have a market here. So when I started Zulu Meats, I continued doing it, now using Zulu Meats, because what I wanted to do is I wanted the brand to grow Tyrus, the person on Twitter, because I realized that's a mistake I made when I started my cybersecurity career. People don't know Euclid, they know Tyrus. But now people know Zulu, and they're surprised it's owned by Tyrus. So I really wanted to divorce myself from the brand. And so I continued just talking about it and, having a few of my friends come over, they talk about the meat, and it just grew a life of its own. I had to let go of social media to get someone to manage the socials, who, by the way, is not in Nairobi. She's all the way in Nanyuki, and she does an amazing job. And I think that is what has helped my, gain and also retain my customer base. So one of the biggest challenges that I faced was, I think we introduced a product one day, and we got a huge surge of orders, and it was a logistical nightmare. I had to do a lot of damage control for customers who had paid and they didn't get their orders, but we managed to salvage the situation. And so that again, it shone the light into, the areas that I really need to fix and I need to pay a lot of attention to, which is logistics, which I figured out now. And for me, every failure is a learning point. You don't make the same mistake twice. The customers are very unforgiving. They'll move on to the next guy. They won't mind walking for miles to get their meat. And at the same time, when you have people at the shop who it takes time for them to understand your strategy, because we're not selling to people who are just walking in. We're selling to online people who might never come to the shop. So they need to understand how important it is to maintain the quality, to be courteous and to accept when they make a mistake, not to defend themselves, and not to fight with the customer. So I really invested about 2 months just sitting at the shop and drilling this into the guys between the months of April and May. And right now, like I said, the shop runs itself. And I can say that those have been very poignant lessons that I'm grateful for. And I'm pretty sure the minimum that will come, and especially now as we formalize our business and put proper structures into place.
Okay. Over to you, Juliet. What has helped you grow your business online? You've been online for the last 4 years. What are those things that you've tested and you've proved to be successful? Are there any failures you've learned through your journey, especially since you not only serve Nairobi, but you also serve the whole country, and these are perishable goods. So what are those things that you've learned along the journey?
So quite similar to Tyrus in a way. I think, Greenspoon is really born of a love of food and a complete wonder of how producers get food to us, and such great quality food as well. So really it's about, it started off with a lot of storytelling, and I'd say even to today, we're so much based around creating a community of suppliers and a community of customers who feel connected through us. And I love the stories that come out, and I think that we've really depended on organic growth. We've never had an agency. I still do the social because I just love it, and I love that engagement with community, and I love the feedback, and it's like the highlight of my work life, if you like. And I feel like it's been a really important feedback loop for us as a company, just in terms of informing us where to go with the business and which products to get and so on. I think that it's, I don't know, like I feel I've read quite a few articles recently about the death of these unicorn businesses, right? And I think it's important that people realize out there that building businesses takes time, takes a serious amount of grit, and it doesn't happen overnight, and customers don't come overnight, and they don't remain with you overnight unless you really understand them and you really dedicate yourself to the provision of a great service. That's essentially what it is. And I think from my point of view, like, I have really always taken customer feedback super seriously, and I actually, a lot still gets escalated to me because I'm a bit of a control freak on that side. But also because, just like Tyrus, I see every complaint as an opportunity to change things. So I'm really transparent with customers. If they say, I'm annoyed because this, that, and the next thing wasn't working on your website, I'll look into it straight away. And like 3 days later, I'll probably write back to them and say, okay, these are the things we're changing. And thank you so much for your feedback. We can't do this yet, but we are doing this and this. So I think that kind of dialogue becomes super powerful. And I know that as a customer of other businesses, when I get an honest reply to anything, I'm bought in, I'm there, like I'm theirs for life now. So we've really relied upon that. And I think, yeah, we've made some mistakes we've made plenty of mistakes along the way. And, you know, getting perishables up country and things is a massive challenge. But on the whole, it works. I mean, things that we don't do now, like we won't send ice cream and we won't send a tray of eggs, but we've worked out how to do, you know, our meats and our dairy products and so on. And we have these wonderful customers who take a photo when they get their box. They'll say, I've just opened my box and everything's still frozen. There you go. There's some evidence for you as a business owner that I'm not just telling you it's okay because I'm a friend of yours. I'm actually showing you it's okay, like this works. So I think it's just, I don't know, like I always feel like with business, come back to the human level, try to understand what how your customers would be feeling in that moment when they're furious with you for making a mistake or for delivering late or something like that. And you don't lose by saying, you know, how can we make this up to you? And they may say, I'm not going to be your customer again. And that is a pill you're going to have to swallow from time to time. You know, I'm also a strong believer in you attract your tribe, right? So there are some people who are going to come and try your service and it's not for them. Some of them will melt away and you won't see them again. Others will get very angry with you because their expectations may have been different. And that's another thing I've learned is just be true to yourself, be transparent as a business, and then people won't come to you with the wrong expectations. That's also really important.
Okay, good to know. Moses, maybe you can tell us some of the social media tools that small businesses can use as they grow their business.
Yeah, I think the fact that we live in a social sort of ecosystem these days, you can access a lot of tools for social media management and tracking and really just finding and really just being able to read into the data that your customers are giving you. So I think Hootsuite is definitely a number one. I know it's they offer a very good free version. I think Sprout Social as well is quite nice to have a look at. You can also have a look at Social Pilot. I think those are the three that I would actually recommend for you to use as you monitor and run your small business online.
Okay, that's interesting. As we wind up, so that we can go to the Q&A, what advice would you like to give the audience with which that they can be able to implement, especially for those people who indicated that they're business owners and they're looking at either pivoting to digital or scaling their operations online? Maybe we can start with you, Tyrus.
My 7-month advice, I'd say, is that like I said before, you know, the customers were initially, whatever product you want to sell to your customers, they're getting it from somewhere. And they're not just waiting for you to start a business and then they can start buying from you. You'd have to really, you know, show what's so unique about your product. Is it how you deliver it? Is it the packaging? What's the differentiator between you and the next guy? And like Juliet said, it takes a lot of grit. You know, you're going to get hammered. You know, just don't let it, you know, cost you sleep. Don't give up. And you know, now I find an opportunity every time I look around. Every time I go on Twitter and I see opportunities with consumer trends. It's good to always, you know, keep your finger on the pulse of spending habits. What are people willing to spend? And you'd be surprised that there's quite a lot for everyone to spend their money on. And at the same time, you really need to be, your business, to be frank, has to be born out of passion. I have a passion for grilling and barbecuing. I do it every other weekend, you know, just seated there by myself and I'm happy with myself. Yeah, so converting, and I always say, the best businesses are born out of passion. Juliet is very passionate about the planet and keeping it green, and you see where the business has gotten into. So let it be something that you can wake up and do for free, and if you can make money out of it, go for it. And at the same time, Do not ignore the science of business. That's why we have accounting. Those things, the foundations really have to make sense. Profit and loss. You need to make money. Businesses are in the business of making money. So you can't be in the business of just being famous, so that you're known that you own a business. It has to make sense, to both you and to your customer. And at the same time, you have to be obsessive about making sure that things don't go wrong. Juliet mentioned that, yes, being a control freak, I totally understand that. I every time I see a negative comment, it really bothers me to the core. I want to pick that call and just talk to the customer directly, but I'm thinking I need to insulate myself because they'll always be calling me for the minutest of reasons. But I want them to deal with the business, right? So for me, those would be the soft words of advice that I'd give to anyone who wants to get into this space.
Okay. Juliet?
I would say, I echo everything that Tyrus says, and I would say keep your finger on the pulse, but one thing is to also keep your eye on the goal of your business, right? Because I think one of the things I've learned along the way is that everybody's got a million brilliant ideas for your business, and you need to remain true to what you're about. So, there have been a number of times where people have said to me, well, you've just got to open a farm shop. You have to open a farm shop. And I've spent time thinking about it and crunching the numbers and really going through it, and then come back to what our core is all about. So I wouldn't discount exploring options for your business, but I would also just say remember what you're all about and what differentiates you from your competition. And I think also echoing what Tyrus has said, if the accounting is there to show you the science with your business, but if you're not good at an element of your business, then find someone who is good at it, because you can't do everything. We're not designed to be octopuses and to be handling everything ourselves. So I think choosing your team to come around you is really important, and you have to just see at what kind of capital can you put in, whether you bring in people who are really experienced, who you don't have to manage and who will build the business with you, or whether you're slightly more at a startup stage and you're happy to train people to do things the way you want them to be done, and you're still going to have an element of quite a lot of micromanaging. I think when you're pivoting into the digital space, don't underestimate how much time it can take and how much it can cost to execute the logistics. I think that a lot of businesses do, and it can be the downfall. So do your research on that side would also be my advice.
Okay. Just to dive into the Q&A, we'll make it short. So Sheena asks, considering online businesses are primarily based on deliveries, how do you manage your orders and delivery logistics and timelines? Just to add on this, the next session will be about operations and logistics. But Juliet, you can go ahead and answer it.
Sure. So we, from day one, we said next day delivery, and one of the reasons was that I didn't want to be paying for the cost of mistakes, and so I felt that if we say next day delivery, I realized that that's going to put some people off and it requires some forward planning. But for us as a business, it's a more sustainable long-term plan. So we do next day delivery. We have various software tools that we use to help us when deliveries come through, and we're able to sort of order them in terms of, the order in which they're going to be delivered. Because as I said earlier, we're not sending out pickies, we're sending 3 vehicles and they do different routes. We've allocated drivers to different areas of town, and there's several reasons for this. One is obviously they get to know repeat and loyal customers, which make up a huge number of our customer base. But the second is that the customers get to know them. So it's quite fun actually, because the customers know, whether it's Anton or Dennis or Matua coming to deliver to them that day. They've kind of built a relationship, which I think is really nice. And that's one of the things I've always said to my staff as well, is that you need to take ownership of your department in this business, right? I cannot be watching over you all the time, but if you help us build the business, then there's more in it for you. And actually we took that one step further, and everybody is tied into a small profit share of the month before that comes with their salary. And that's because I believe it's deserved, and because I think it's a really great sustainable way to build a business and to involve people in the building of that business. So yeah, so that's how we manage our delivery and logistics. Sometimes it goes wrong, and obviously in the days when there was tons of traffic, it could be very stressful. tracking and managing and seeing what was going on with the vehicles. But actually, COVID has also done us a huge favor on that front, because there's just less traffic around, so the deliveries get done much more efficiently, and less need for pannier routes or even long routes just to get back home in time.
Okay. Moses, there's a question here for you. Based on the report findings, what are the considerations SMEs should make as they plan towards recovery in the medium term and long term?
Okay, great. That's a good question. What we had done on our research wasn't necessarily skewed towards SMEs, but just towards brands, right? And the problem is that we come from a background of working with established brands. But I think these principles, we came up with almost like, I think, 3 principles that we thought are sort of applicable to just any sort of business, right? And the first one is action beyond communication. And what we were basically saying is that today consumers have been faced with real socioeconomic challenges. And therefore, this is not necessarily a time for capitalizing, but it's a time for people, for sort of businesses to deliver, or actually deliver tangible brand interventions, or tangible interventions. I think about what a lot of businesses are sort of pivoted to addressing some of the immediate demands that that COVID has actually unearthed, right? The second one is called serving new needs, right? And the COVID-19 has surfaced new consumer needs, behaviors, fears, and desires. What we're trying to do is almost the consumers are now faced with financial pressure, right? And what you want to do as a business, you want to identify how your business can incorporate these new needs into your product position, right? The third one is maintaining brand momentum. I think for most businesses that decided to sort of cut down on their budgets as a result of the decrease in demand, what you want to do now, especially in a time of a pandemic, in terms of a time when most people are not spending, is you want to actually continue, or you want to maintain your brand momentum. So it has been a few months into the pandemic, and there are some pockets of economic recovery that can be seen across the country, right? You want to be at the front seat of this. You want to be at the forefront as the recovery unfolds. So one is action beyond communication, serve the new needs that are emerging, and maintain your momentum as a business.
Okay. Thank you so much, Moses. Tyrus and Juliet, do you have any recommendations for packaging of your products? One boy was asking if you have contacts of guys who package products like flour. Maybe if you have any suggestions, you can just post them in the chat so that those people who will be looking or exploring to package some of their products, they can be able to have a look and maybe also interact with some of your suppliers. So you can just post it in the chat. And then to you, Juliet, what are the top two social media strategies that have led to the highest sales conversion, both during quarantine and outside of it? This is a question by Jennifer.
Thanks, Jennifer. I have found in my experience that for community building, Instagram has worked insanely well for us. In terms of conversion from the platform, it's low, but that I believe to be true across the board and even globally, that once people are into Instagram, they don't really want to leave it. That's not to say that they don't leave the platform and come back in having been influenced by Instagram, but you can't measure it. So we found that for Instagram, we really focus on the community building aspect. When we hit 10K followers, it's amazing because now we can put in the link to swipe up on our stories, and that has actually led to a bit more traction. So I think people might swipe that and then they open it in Safari and continue with their shopping there. They come back later. With Facebook, we have found that there are more conversions. into direct sales. But the best tool that we have really for our particular audience is email marketing. We have a huge ROI on that, and we have different strategies for our email marketing depending on what you've signed up for. We haven't got into the space of AI on our website yet, but we're looking into it so that we can actually do better recommendations, more appropriate recommendations to our customers when they visit us. So I think in terms of conversion, it's email marketing, but it's very much a push platform. You're not going to get much feedback from that. In terms of community building, I just love Instagram. In terms of, I guess it's a bit of both on Facebook. There's a bit of community, there's a bit of sales. And Tyrus will probably want to punch me through the computer, but I don't do much on Twitter at all. But I think it's also a different customer base. So, you know, we're attracting our tribes on different platforms, if you like, and I'm totally cool with that, because Twitter's a different ball game.
Okay. Tyrus, do you want to chip in?
Yeah, sure. I think for me, it started off on Twitter for the first 2 months. Most of our sales were coming from Twitter because I'm only on Twitter as a person. I'm not on Instagram, I'm not on Facebook. But then when I opened Instagram and Facebook, our sales are largely coming from Instagram. Actually, I'd say about 75% is Instagram on a day-to-day. On Facebook, it's crawling at the moment. We've not seen much traction from that end. And the rest have been referrals, word of mouth. People will call directly, or people will actually drive all the way to the shop. I've had instances where people have driven all the way from Kitengela and Rongai just to come and see the place, because they probably couldn't believe that this place existed. You know, given the hype that it has online, could be another scam. And so, a majority of the people who came between the first 2 months came because of Twitter. So, which was a very interesting conversion, because, you know, you'd expect the converse that, you know, people would come first, then go post it on Twitter. But then the other thing that we did, and which I think I executed very well, is something similar to what Juliet said, is that I decided to sell FOMO, and especially in my packaging. So everyone who got their Zulu Meets package would take a photo and post it. And now that became the signature of Zulu Meets. And I remember there's a time we ran out of the bags and my supplier unfortunately hadn't replenished. And we give them these woven bags. And someone said, no, I'm not going to take a photo of a woven bag and post it on Instagram or Twitter. I need the Zulu Meets, you know, branded bag. So, and I think that worked very well, because then again, it sort of creates that community that Juliet is talking about. So everyone wants a sense of belonging, especially in this day and age, and you don't want to be left out. And so that has worked very well for me.
Okay. That's good to hear. Georgina had a compliment towards you, Tyrus. She says she's Georgina, she's a young chef, and she has a cook page on Instagram. And I had Tyrus talking about, and I would love to have a better understanding of the process. So maybe we will put you in contact with Tyrus, and Tyrus with Georgina. Then maybe you could even have a cook page, a cook show on Instagram, which will be really, really cool.
So give Georgina some meat packs and whip up some recipes.
Definitely. I like that. So as we wind down, the next session will be creating and optimizing an effective operations plan for selling online. So this will be happening on 12th of August in 2 weeks' time. So it will be about maintaining inventory for both blended online and offline selling, what metrics to look out for when you're thinking about an e-commerce partner, optimizing for exports, that is shipping and taxes, and also how to identify an export partner and shipping prices, as well as local transport, effective route mapping, and partnerships. So on the panel, we'll have John Macharia of Shikilia Stores, and then we'll also have Kane Wanjau of Twiga Foods. These days, I think everyone knows that now not only is Twiga buying from everyone in Kenya, They're also selling, I think, in so many towns within the country. And then also have someone from Michelle Cots, which is like I think #1 in clearing and forwarding, and they also handle small businesses. So that will happen on 12th of August. So I'd like Rita Njue of Gaga to give the vote of thanks, and then there'll also be a giveaway we should tell you more about.
Good evening, everyone. Excited, sorry we are 10 minutes late. We were meant to keep time, but we're a bit late, so sorry about this. Thank you everybody for attending the session. Gaga is quite excited. We'll be hosting another 3 sessions. Juliet, thank you so much for your insights, quite interesting. I'll be bringing my products to come on your platform. Tyrus, thank you so much. I'm also doing ginger garlic. You need to marinate with my product also. I'm marketing myself as I'm saying thank you. Tizomu, yes, branding is very key. So thank you so much for your insight. And well, the giveaway for today is all the participants will be getting 10% coupon discount. We're going to be sending SMSs to all of you to be able to get some, to be able to purchase on Greenspoon. Juliet, thank you so much for that. At the same time, Evelyn Wamboi, thank you so much for being the first person to register. You'll be getting a coupon. You'll be going to Tyrus to get some meat from him. So Tyrus should be expecting the first person who registered online will be getting a coupon. So they'll be coming to Zulu Meat to order. Generally, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to having all of you. We'll be waiting for your feedback so that you can take in anything that we need to take up for the next session. And Juliet, Tyrus, Tizomu, hopefully you'll be logging in and telling people about our next webinar session. Thank you so much. And God bless.
Just to add that we will give a giveaway. Rita?
Yes, I did say that. Tyrus, we're giving Evelyn Wamboi, the lady who was the first to register. Evelyn is from, Evelyn will be coming, we'll actually ask Evelyn to come to Tyrus's to order online on Zulu Meet. So Tyrus, you will be getting that order from us. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and we'll be sharing a coupon for everyone who joined.
Yes, we'll send out SMSs, yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much for attending. Feel free to like our pages and to give a review of this session. Also feel free to email us and tell us what was your experience. For some of the questions that were asked, they will be featured in some of the other sessions. That this is a 4-part session. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks so much.
Thank you and congratulations. It was awesome.
Thank you, Florence.